Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's WOW session. I am so excited for the topic today. My name is Erin Miley. I am one of the product managers here at AIM, and I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping because today is a webinar format. So we still want to interact with you because we have a great little exercise that our presenter is going to run us through. So to interact with us today, we're going to use the chat feature located at the bottom of your screen. If you do not readily see the chat feature located at the bottom of the screen, there is a more icon with 3 dots, a circle with 3 dots. Click that and your chat should pop up there. For Q&A today, for questions and answers, we're going to use the actual Q&A section. So you should also be able to see that as a Q&A with a question mark icon at the bottom of your screen. So make sure you can locate that if you have questions for our presenter today. So both of those should be either readily available and or the circle with the more underneath it will pop those up for you as well. We also want to use the reactions. So Matt just demonstrated that for us. Reactions are emojis that we can use to express happy, sad, all of those things. We got some going on. Yep. Love that for us. So we're going to be using those as well today with our presenter. So make sure if you don't really, again, see that, the more icon will pop that up for you. All right. So that being said, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hop out because I'm going to transfer this conversation over to my colleague, Matt Wideman. And he's going to lead us through and introduce our presenter for today. So Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Erin. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Glad to be here with everybody this morning. Talk a little bit about our WOW session for this month. And this month, we're going to talk a little bit about DiSC and using DiSC assessments and how they can be used for within your organization for multiple uses for really about employee engagement and development. And so we're joined this morning by Leslie Miszerak, who's one of our AIM coaches and consultants. Leslie's been working for years using the DiSC tools, and we like to use them a lot here within AIM. We've got a lot of members who use them for various topics and various uses within the organization. I asked her to come on and explain a little bit about DiSC and how you might be able to use it. And let's get started quickly with a reaction. I know we used the react button. I'd like to just kind of get a feeling. If everybody could use the react button to tell me, how much or how familiar you are with DiSC. So if you are using DiSC, have done your own DiSC profile in the past, let's use your little applause hand. So that's a little clap applause. If you've used DiSC in the past, if you're here to learn because you've never used DiSC before, but you've heard of it, let's use the thumbs up. Do the little thumbs up guy if you're just familiar with DiSC, but you've never done it. And then let's do the heart if you are like, I really don't know what DiSC is for. I love coming to WOW sessions, but I'm here to learn because I don't know anything about DiSC. So hopefully that gives us a little temperature on where everybody is on why they're here. So cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for using that. I'm going to turn it over to Leslie. Leslie, you can give us a little bit of background about you and jump right in, and I'll jump in as needed in terms of my questions and give you a little flavor on how I've seen some AIM users use DiSC. So Leslie.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Erin, for helping put all this together. Appreciate both of you. My name is Leslie Miszerak. I'm an AIM coach and facilitator. And my DiSC style on this particular chart is an IS. You're going to see one a little bit later that's a little bit of an SI. My IS is a little older. And my SI is now really where I stand. And we can talk more about that a little bit later. But it hasn't really changed who I am. My style has probably just softened a little bit with age, let's be real. That said, I still feel like I'm very fun and creative. My style, my DiSC style is positive, energetic. I'm pretty intuitive, kind of a gut instincts person. Tend to be a fast thinker, and when you give me a microphone, a fast talker. I love engaging with people. I'm all about people. I'm bored when there aren't people around. Mostly cooperative, helpful, a peacemaker. I used to have the The title is Switzerland as a peacemaker. I'm inclusive of all. I love all people, all different thought perspectives, and that's exciting for me. An action taker, but the sad reality is not so much of an administrative kind of person. And Matt could probably testify to this. It is the opposite of my style. And Matt can testify because I am the worst at getting my hours logged in the right week or on time in the timekeeping system. So luckily, he still puts up with me. That said, I understand that about myself. I still do administrative work, but it just it takes a different level of effort. So that said, let's talk about Matt for just a moment. Matt's style is a C. And so I probably frustrate him with my administrivia challenges when his is really about accuracy. One of his keywords is accuracy. Matt, as the product manager at AIM around training and org development, tell us a little bit about your C style.
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, it's all about accuracy. I like to be very accurate. I like to make sure that we're following processes, ensuring that things are done by quality and they're following like the process of step 1, step 2, steps 3. I do like to work independently as a C style. It's not like I don't like working with others, but I prefer to get things done because I know how they're going to be done by myself. And I like being viewed as an expert. If we need to know something about training, we can go to Matt and ask him. So that's what I like to do. I like to do analysis and pull in statistics to say this is showing us X, Y, and Z. How my style kind of is maybe not as reflective to me sometimes is I am very flexible, actually. So I like change. I like to see change happen, and I'm okay being flexible. Hey, this is a new problem thrown at us. Okay, let's figure out how to do it, which I think is kind of like the C. How do we find a process around this? But I'm okay with changing environments. So I'm not so rigid in terms of it has to be the way we've always done it. I'm okay with the flexibility that comes in. So
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that.
yep.
So the one thing I can't see is everybody's emojis. Matt, can you see the emojis that come up when they put their reactions?
I do see, yes, I see them most of the
Okay.
time when they pop in.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. I'm going to ask you to help me with this next activity. And everybody, for the next 5 or 10 minutes, do me a favor and turn off your email and really kind of focus in with us because we're going to do an activity and I want to see what you've got to say. So we're going to use the webinar chat. Remember, the Q&A is for question and answers. We're going to use the webinar chat for this next little activity as well as the reactions. So Matt and I talked about ourselves. Let's talk about you. Okay, you ready? Everybody ready out there? Okay. Let's think about your ideal kind of workplace culture, your ideal preference in the workplace. Would you rather have lots of time to collaborate or have lots of autonomy? Please answer this question in the chat by either saying collaborate or autonomy. Okay, we've got some collaborates and autonomy popping in. Excellent. Yeah, this is how we do it.
Good mix.
Yeah, it really is a good mix. I see a lot of autonomy.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? This is about understanding yourself. Perfect. This is exactly how we do this. 50-50, Janet. That's not fair, girl.
Zelda said she can't pick.
I can't pick. Zilda's the same. I can't pick. I like both. I completely understand. Right. And just because we have a preference doesn't mean we can't do the other. That's the key thing about DiSC. And that's the key thing about what we're talking about today. So thank you all for sharing. I appreciate that. Okay. Next question. Would you rather make decisions quickly or be able to think things through? So decisions or think?
I know what I would say.
Oh, are you a thinker, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't put me on the spot. I gotta
You need
absorb.
to process, right?
Yep. Need to process.
And nothing's wrong with either of those. It's understanding our style, our preference, what makes us tick.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So let's keep going. Thank you all. First of all, I can't find my reactions button, so I'm going to actually clap for all of you. Thank you for doing that. We're going to do another activity. And for those of you that think you're 50-50, you can't do 50-50 on this one. Okay, this is not allowed. There's a lot of places where I'm totally, as a high I, going to fudge it and say, you know what, you can do whatever you want. But for this next activity, we are going to pick one or the other. Okay, and if you have a piece of paper, go ahead and write this down so you don't forget. So how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as fast-paced and outspoken, or cautious and reflective? You have to choose one or the other, so you don't have to tell us in this chat. You can just make a note, because we're going to go all the way through this activity and you're going to see what your style might be. So fast-paced and outspoken, or cautious and reflective. Please make a note for yourself. Okay, so you have to be in one group or the other. Later down the road, you see you might be able to be closer to the middle, but that said, for this activity, one or the other. Okay, we got some fast-paced and outspoken, some cautious and reflective. Okay, everybody know what they are?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Next slide. Now, how do you see yourself? Questioning and skeptical, or accepting and warm? Again, you have to choose one or the other.
Mhm.
Okay, so
I'll be interested to see this one because we have so many HR people, right?
Uh-huh.
We love people as HR people, right? We all love people, or do we just?
Not all HR people love people.
I
Come
know,
on, let's just be real.
right? Yes,
They went into HR thinking they loved people, and now they're like,
right.
"Oh God,
And they found out they didn't
yeah,
like
people
everyone.
make me crazy. It's all right." I just did a talk on this not too long ago. That's so
Right.
funny. So you're either questioning and skeptical, or accepting and warm.
Mhm.
And again, none of these are bad. This is your preference.
Right.
Okay. So everybody have their
I like Zilda's
selected
comment, as a reformed accountant, she questions everything.
everything. Right?
Yeah,
Zilda,
love it.
very smart. I don't blame you. Most HR people question everything,
Yeah.
but that's not necessarily their preference or style. That might be just how they've been accustomed or trained at work, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I asked you how you see yourself, as fast-paced and outspoken, or cautious and reflective, and then questioning and skeptical, or accepting and warm. So you should have two of these. You should be in one of these categories. So if you said you are, can everybody see my mouse move around on the screen?
Mhm.
Okay. So if you said you're fast-paced and outspoken, along with being questioning and skeptical, you're up in this corner. Okay. If you said you're fast-paced and outspoken and accepting and warm, you'd be in this corner. Right? These are our virtual corners of the room. Now,
Mhm.
if you said you were cautious and reflective, as well as being questioning and skeptical, you're in this corner. And if you said you were cautious and reflective, along with being accepting and warm, you're in this corner. Everybody understand what we've done? Everybody know
Mhm.
what corner they're in? Okay, well, let's start putting a letter to these corners. So again, if you're fast-paced, outspoken, questioning, and skeptical, you might be a D style. If you are fast-paced, outspoken, and accepting and warm, you might be an I style. If you are cautious and reflective, along with being accepting and warm, you might be an S style. And then bringing it on home, if you're cautious and reflective, along with being questioning and skeptical, you might be a C style. So do you see what we just did?
Mhm.
Patricia said she was an SI the last time she took the test. For this activity, we're using the single letter. So Patricia, let me ask you a question. Did you put yourself in the S corner when you did this activity? And you can answer on chat. Yes, perfect. Excellent. Matt, did you end up in the C corner?
I did. Yep.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Lisa is a high I with D second. And Aaron, you went to the C, just like we kind of talked about before. Okay, Adam's in the C as well. Right. This is just kind of a really interesting way to pay attention to yourself. Think about yourself and your preferences. But you can also do this do a little kind of speed reading with other people you might be talking to. You know, if you're at a restaurant, you can speed read the host or the waiter, the wait staff, and see if they talk really fast and they're really warm, or if they're more focused on making sure everything's right on the order. You can start to think about what their styles might be. Thank you all for doing this. Let me give you an applause. So thank you all for participating in our little activity. So DiSC. DiSC is a simple and really kind of powerful tool that identifies 4 behavioral styles: D, dominance; I, influence; S, steadiness; C, conscientious. This model has been backed with over 40 years of research and really uses kind of adaptive testing to deliver pretty accurate, personalized insights. You know, I'll be honest with you, does DiSC solve all problems? Is DiSC the answer for everything? I'm going to be really honest and say, no, it's not. And I'm also going to qualify that when used in the right scenarios and for the right reasons, it is a wonderful, wonderful tool for leadership, team, and organizational development. Matt, would you agree with that?
I would agree. Yeah. Where I've seen it be most beneficial is what I see most beneficial across the board is the increase of self-awareness or confirmation of how you're wired.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not, and as you said earlier, there's no right and wrong. It's not because everybody's an I is a problem. It is everybody's their own way of how they like to show up to meetings or how they prefer to communicate, and it's just your preference. But the true benefit is raising your self-awareness so you know then how people are possibly viewing you and maybe if you need to adjust.
Yeah, totally. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm certified in several DiSC tools. It's an open source concept. When developed, it was left open source. So anybody can take the concept and really that was theorized by William Moulton Marston, and create their own assessment. And unlike other assessments, I like this particular DiSC assessment as my favorite because it is really specifically designed for the workplace. Yes, you can see yourself, but it's yourself in a workplace concept. So you're not trying to see who I am personally and then put it into a workplace framework. It gives you that workplace framework. So it really makes it easy to understand and immediately apply. So let's meet our 4 styles. D, dominance, direct, results-oriented, competitive. Great, all things that are important. I, enthusiastic, persuasive, people-focused. Again, things that are important. Steadiness, supportive, dependable, patient might be words that stand out for a steady. And then C, conscientious, analytical, precise, quality-driven. And no style is better than the other. Absolutely no style is better than the other. And the secret is we have all 4 of us in ourselves, right? You have a main style. I call that main style kind of like your favorite pair of sneakers or your favorite shoes that you put on. You're like, oh, it's going to be a good day. I got my favorite shoes on, right? Whatever that is. Or the end of a tough work day and you walk in the house and you take the backpack off your shoulders or your jacket off and you're like, oh, I'm home. That's how I think about DiSC styles, where our preference is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One thing that I'll point out is, I think one of our training classes where we go into DiSC, the subtitle of the class is how to work with people that drive you crazy, because working with people that are different styles of ours can irritate us because that's not how we're wired. Right.
Yeah. And to build on that, as humans, we are amazingly flexible if we desire to be. So no style is better than the other. The magic happens when teams recognize and really value the differences of others, which will then help to really reducing misunderstandings, and impacting or increasing collaboration.
Yeah.
Okay, I already
Brittany said that she's an S, but she's definitely not patient.
Right. And sometimes that's work related. Brittany, you might be an SC to where your patience is limited. So think about that. That C might be really kind of pulling the patience away. So understanding just because the words show up on screen doesn't mean it exactly knows you. So that's really important. So Brittany, thank you so much for sharing. A couple of things around DiSC. It is not designed to label, even though we will use it as a label. It's not designed to put a label on someone like, oh, it's Matt, he's a C. Or Matt thinking, oh, it's Leslie, she's an I, right? It's not what that's about. It's about understanding our differences. And that's what makes it really important. I've already talked about those comfortable shoes. When we are inside of our preferred style and doing things in our style, we often feel more comfortable. Not always, but we often feel more comfortable. And the great thing about DiSC is it is really important for self-awareness, understanding our own styles, our own preferences, but then also building awareness of others. Because I would bet that, if you thought about you and if you have a spouse, a partner, kids at home, best friends, family that you connect with, they've got different styles. Sometimes they probably make you a little crazy and frustrated. But if you can appreciate that's their style and that's who they are and flex a little to their style, it's really important. The same thing happens in the workplace. When we can flex to someone else, it's really valuable. People feel more trust, they feel deeper connection. It's really some important stuff. And when that person can flex with us, which is what makes it such a good tool for driving results, is when people understand each other, they can start to connect on different terms instead of, well, I'm a D and this is just the way it's always going to be, versus, you know what, I'm talking with someone who's an S, I need to give them space maybe for thinking through things differently, right? So understanding that. The program today is about driving through results, and there's a few different ways to use DiSC to drive through results: coaching, team building, change management, and then culture alignment. Let's take a look at each of these in just a little bit more depth, if you guys are cool with that. Everybody cool with that? Okay, let's do it. So coaching, as a coach, I'm all in for coaching. To me, it's the best learning tool there is, but I might be a little biased. That said, I understand that. Organizations implement DiSC for 4 strategic reasons with direct impact on performance as well as results. So coaching. Personalized development plans for leaders can be really valuable. Coaching is most effective when it's tailored to the individual. DiSC gives leaders and employees really a clear understanding of their strengths, their blind spots. Notice I didn't say weaknesses, their blind spots, and their behavioral tendencies. Oh, that's why I act like this, right? That's why I love it when somebody gives me a microphone, right? Whatever that thing is. For example, a high D leader may need coaching on patience and listening, while a high S employee might need encouragement to speak up in meetings. I just had the same exact scenario with one of my clients yesterday. High D, president of a company, has a new leader in the organization that's an S. He's going to be phenomenal in his role, but encouraging him to speak up in meetings is something the leader is going to be working on through some coaching conversations, right? Managers and coaches can use DiSC insights to really design development plans that stick, because you then align them with the way people naturally think and act and have passion or comfort around. Growing is all about getting out of our comfort zone, but when we're growing in a way that fits our style, we're much more eager and aligned to do so. One global tech company used DiSC as a foundation for all of its leadership programs, and they said within a year, they saw measurable increases in manager effectiveness scores. Isn't that interesting? Because of that flexibility and understanding of each other's style. So coaching is a great way if you're not ready to have a big program, but you want to use it in smaller ways. This can be a great way to start. Another way to do this would be through team building. Say yes or no in the chat if you would. Do you have silos in your organization? Yes or no? Yes. Look at all the yeses. Interesting. Not seeing any no's there, huh? Janet said, not sure. Right? Lots of yeses. Okay, we got a no. We got a couple, got a no and a not really and a not sure. That's okay. Team building using DiSC for team building is a really great way to start to break down those silos and improve communication. Most, if not all, most team challenges come down to misunderstanding of styles. A fast-paced D is frustrated with a careful C, or the enthusiastic I clashes with a reserved S. Understanding that can be really valuable. DiSC provides this shared language to talk about these differences productively, without labeling someone as difficult, right? Teams can learn how to flex their style in real time, reduce friction, build trust, because trust is what breaks down these silos. And then get to solution faster. There was a healthcare team that adopted DiSC. They reported that project meetings went from 2 hours of circular debate to a focused 45-minute discussion because they understood how to work with and not against each other. Right? So team building is a really valuable way to use DiSC.
Leslie, one thing
Yes.
on team building that I'll mention that I find feedback that I've gotten from organizations we've worked with at this. It's helpful to have, especially if you're doing an internal training or everybody's doing the DiSC, is a plot map of where that team lies on the wheel, as I call it, the DISC. Because if you have everybody that's in one corner, that could show a blind spot on what the team is thinking about when it comes to projects or initiatives, things like that. If everybody's driving, but nobody's being conscientious, nobody's driving things in their quadrant, sometimes that's missed, and that could be a problem with how that team operates.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to show you everybody in the Catalyst app, which is part of DiSC, the map where you can actually see your teams and you can break teams down. It's really some interesting things that they've done at Everything DiSC. So it's another reason why I like using this particular product. So change, man. We are in a world of change. Change is happening at warp speed for everybody I work with. So I'm betting it's happening at warp speed for you. Using DiSC for change can really help teams adapt more quickly to the new realities. It's not perfect, but it can help, right? Change often fails because people resist it differently. A high S might feel anxious about a new process, while a high D wants to push it forward, and a high I is so darned excited, they're just jumping right in, and a C might be thinking about all the risk that needs to be analyzed first. So understanding that. DiSC helps equip leaders to anticipate these reactions and address them directly as well as differently with each group or each person, or making sure you're hitting points that cover all 4 of those groups. It helps employees stretch into new behaviors so that they can really adapt more effectively and understand themselves. A manufacturing company integrated DiSC into their post-merger change strategy because managers were better equipped to connect with employees. Turnover dropped by 18% in 1 year, and productivity recovered much faster than projected. And then the last area is culture alignment. Really creating shared expectations for behavior. And that's what culture is all about, is that shared experience, the shared things that we see, the shared words that are used in an organization. When we can start to create shared expectations, This changes the game and helps us set people up for success and sometimes even see who's not the right person in the organization, right? This is HR that we're talking about. This is the reality of the work. So a strong culture doesn't happen by accident. It is really built on these shared norms with shared language. And DiSC can help to create some clarity around how we work together here, what the expectations are, making those expectations of behavior, communication very explicit. For example, a company that values collaboration can use DiSC to help D leaders temper their pace and C leaders be more open to brainstorming. A national retail chain integrated DiSC into its onboarding and leadership training, resulting in more consistent communication, as well as a notable increase in employee engagement across stores. So, whether it's coaching, team dynamics, culture shaping, or navigating change, this is a practical approach that delivers measurable results. Again, as I said earlier, it's not the answer to everything. There's still a lot of other things that have to happen in these 4 areas, but this is a great, I would say a phenomenal tool for your toolbox. Everybody cool with that? Tell me yes if you are. Make sure you're still with me. You got some yeses? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that from all of you. So, everything DiSC assessments. The workplace assessment is really used to improve collaboration and understanding. A real world example might be a regional bank used this workplace assessment to improve branch collaboration, boosting customer satisfaction scores. And so, for example, this particular sample one is a high I. Okay, this person's keywords are action, enthusiasm, and collaboration, probably enthusiasm being their main word. But you see this little shaded piece over here? This shaded piece means there's something, they answered questions in a particular way that's outside of the norms of the I, so it pulls a little bit of shading over. This could be learned, it could be preference, it just could be just how they answered a series of questions on that particular day. There is nothing wrong with the shading, and I would say probably 15% of us have some sort of shading on our assessments. The Agile EQ assessment takes a look at one's DiSC style, but then also their emotional intelligence kind of regulation around it, how they might navigate their emotions. So the same I person probably is got a more outgoing emotive experience. They probably empathize a little bit more and are dynamic. Whereas this management assessment, again, for the same person, they might be energizing their team. They might be a person that just really kind of brings their team along with a great deal of energy. They might be very affirming with their employees as well as their leadership, and they might be pioneering. They might be ready to move things along quicker. So the same style is used across different assessments. So it's not like you have to take just one assessment. You could take the management style or the leadership assessment, or you could do the workplace and tag on the Agile EQ. There's also a work of leaders, which I didn't want to give you too many things to look at up here, but the work of leaders assessment really looks at the leadership capabilities and one's style around leadership. There's a sales everything DiSC assessment to where you start to pay attention to one's sales style. Okay. And then there's a productive conflict, which is really interesting. Once you've gotten into DiSC, I would not start with productive conflict. I would start with DiSC, get some understanding, build that up. Productive conflict is a great way to layer in because conflict is actually important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conflict is simply a problem that needs to be solved. It's when it's not solved or dealt with that it becomes conflict that can wreck a team, wreck a project, do some really negative things. So some real world examples I've already talked. I'll go back to my original one. The workplace, a regional bank used workplace to improve branch collaboration. Agile IQ, a tech company, used Agile IQ to help engineers navigate those client interactions. And they said within about 6 months, client complaints dropped 30%. It's huge, right? We'd like them to drop 100%, but 30 is a great moving point. Management assessment, a retail chain rolled out this to store managers, and employee engagement scores jumped about 14 to 15 points. Again, really good move. The work of leaders healthcare system used this particular framework to align leadership teams across hospitals, improving that cross-site project completion, right? So when people are collaborating together across sites by 22%. Sales assessment, a B2B, business to business service provider, used the sales profile, and they said they saw results improved by 9% in a quarter. And then productive conflict, a nonprofit reduced leadership team meetings by 25% using techniques to keep discussions constructive versus destructive, where we all stop. Okay. Now, if you have questions, be sure to put them in the Q&A section, and we'll be getting to questions in just a few minutes. Now, earlier, I said there was a platform, and DiSC rolled this out probably about a year and a half ago, and it is phenomenal. I'm going to show you a few screenshots. I can't take you into my live Catalyst platform because I actually have a live team from another company in there, and I'm not going to share their private information. But the Catalyst platform, you still get the same DiSC report. Okay, but you also get this really cool platform that you can have right on your telephone. You can use it on your desktop or your laptop. It is phenomenal. Catalyst really helps extend the learning beyond the classroom. So imagine your employees getting real-time tips before walking into a meeting. I'm going to show you about that in just a moment, on how they might best work with that particular colleague, or refreshing what their team looks like, how it all lays out on a map, how they might all be in different places on the map, just for understanding. The Catalyst really helps learners explore their style and gives them so much more information than I can give them in a training session or in a coaching session, because that lasts for just a moment, or that time we're together. This really extends it by letting them have it in the palm of their hands real time, so that they can get information before a meeting or in real time when they're going to go talk to someone. Currently, workplace and management assessment, as well as Agile IQ, are the only 3 assessments that are on the Catalyst platform. I do believe the plan is for them to get all of them there, but obviously there's a great deal of movement that needs to happen, and then a significant amount of testing that needs to happen to make sure there is a level of reliability. Okay. So I'm going to show you what my screen looks like inside Catalyst. Now, remember earlier when I first introduced myself, I said I was an IS. Well, right now, I'm showing up as more of an SI. I have just literally dropped below the line. Pretty much in the same place, just dropped a little bit where my S is pulling through a little bit more. And that's probably given to, 15 years of coaching and spending a lot of time focusing on others versus thinking about what it is I want. Seldom is there a wholesale change where someone's style is going to go completely opposite. And when that does happen, there's a couple of things that may be the result of it. They just really kind of faked the test, didn't do a great job on their assessment, or trauma. Trauma can be a mover for someone's personality. Okay, so understanding that that's typically the only real reasons when there's a significant change. Shifts don't bother me. Little shifts here and there, maybe getting closer to the center, closer to the edge, going right or left just a little bit, that doesn't bother me much at all. As long as you still see yourself in the assessment, I believe it to be true. Matt, are you okay with me having said that? Is that, you agree?
Yeah, the other thing that I've seen in terms of just anecdotally hearing this is when someone might be like, maybe they're more of a C style like me, but they have to step into a leadership role. They know they have to shift to more of a D approach because they are now being direct and they're driving things, right? So that may not be how they're wired, but it may be an adjustment that they've made to themselves in their business environment. And I guess that could show up, but I guess that might be, again, reflective on how they answer the question versus how they actually are.
Yeah, if they're answering the questions based on a difficult conversation they just had, that may not be actually who they are. So really understanding that. So if there's a shift from a C towards a D a little bit more, makes complete sense. But I will say there are amazing drivers out there who drive business and productivity forward that are not in the D category. Right. So that is not necessarily a reason to be the leader or an executive. It's really understanding we have all of these. We just might leverage them a little bit more. So if someone took an assessment where they've been deep in the D, that might be what they're feeling at the moment. Yeah,
Right.
so it's really rather interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't show you good screenshots from my phone. So what I've done is I've done some screenshots from the computer. The phone lays out a little bit better, and I actually kind of like it a little bit more from the phone because it's got some pretty cool things. But this from here, you can download your report. Everybody that takes the workplace, and the Agile EQ and or the management will have access into a screen like this. And it gives you all sorts of information, about your DiSC style. It's got some cool little training modules that they can go through rather quickly. The compare to a colleague, which I'll show you in just a moment. Build a group, which I'll show you in just a moment as well. There's some advice in the website there on your own page, understanding your style as well as other people's styles. There's some links to podcasts. So there's a lot of, if you and your team are really interested in learning about this, there's so much good information. I'm not trying to do a hard sell. I really do believe that this is a valuable tool when used well and thoughtfully. So I want to show you what a sample map might look like. So this could be a team, it could be a project team, it could be an intact team, it could be a leadership team, it could be a new hire group, it could be a group that's in a leadership development program. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of map these out depending on how you put them in there. But this way you can actually see who's in the group and where they might lay out. And could it be problematic if there's a room full of high I's? Yeah, remember me, who is a high I, who doesn't love the administrative piece? There might be things that are missed. Some of that administrivia might be missed or late, right? But if you also have a room full of C's, you're so focused on being skeptical, on looking at risk, getting things right. Sometimes a group of C's doesn't get anything done, right? If we're so focused. So having a group that is diverse creates a dynamism that is really invaluable. Okay. One of the tools, and going back to this, even though this is a sample, you could actually I could click on this guy with the beard right here and learn about him if I wanted to get a little bit more information real quick. I didn't know him all that well. I could learn a little bit about what his style might be. The same is in the colleagues, right? So different from the map, it's the same basic concept. You can click on someone. So I could click on James right here and learn a little bit about James's style before I go into a one-to-one meeting. I could open it on my phone, walk down the hallway. Please don't do this out in traffic or on the sidewalk, but maybe walk down the hallway and take a look. Okay, what do I need to remember about James? James is a DiSC style. He tends to be a little bit more direct. And he's a critical thinker. He finds creative solutions. But he'll also question that status quo because he's got the C piece in his style. So some really cool things. You can filter by styles. You can play with this in a lot of different ways and start to pay attention to what your colleagues are. And this is what makes it so valuable in the team building space, is really being able to play with the Catalyst system outside of your debrief or a training program. Those two are they're invaluable to get started. This is that continuation factor, which really brings to me the value. Another thing that was in my screenshots that I couldn't share everything with you is, again, a little bit more information about what drives you, connecting you and other styles. And then this last piece is really important around building relationships. And there's, in the conflict one, is thinking about different styles under stress. There's a lot of different ways to play with this. So I've said a lot. You might be thinking, well, how do I get started with it? What would make sense? There's a few different ways. I'm going to start at these bottom two. You could start by using it on a team, test it out, see what's working, see what growth is happening. You can use it in coaching. If you're not ready for a big rollout, you could use it in coaching conversations or through our coaching here at AIM. But if you are ready to really kind of bring this forward, I would say let's start with some goal setting. What do you want to get out of this? And this is where Matt's going to spend some time with you and say, what are your expectations? What does success look like? How is this going to impact? How do you believe this will impact you, impact the team, impact the organization? He's going to dive into all of those. Then I would suggest going into a bit of a pilot program. And then from there, you take your learnings. Okay, what worked, what didn't work, what do we need to do differently so that we're tweaking it for fit as well as buy-in across the organization collectively. And then you go into a rollout. This seems like it could take forever. It can really happen pretty quickly. It's just a matter of this is probably the best way if you're going to go for a large scale rollout. If you're going to make it, keep it a little bit smaller, you don't have to go through all of those steps. I think it's important to understand your goals, but you don't have to go through all of those steps if you want to do it in some teams as either a starting point or really repairing relationships or developing relationships in a team.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I've seen, this is almost like a comparing and contrasting individual use versus a team use, right? So a group of people. I often get asked, hey, we need to do some team building. So I like to pull back the onion, find out what do you mean by team building? You're wanting to do something more than going out and playing paintball or doing an escape room, right? What are you trying to accomplish? And that's where I typically go back to, a session like this, which is this will help your team understand each other a little bit better so you can work better together. It's not, we're not doing trust falls, we're not doing tug of war, we're not playing paintball, but we're going to do a lot of classroom activities that will help you understand the makeup of your team, how to work better, how to build that trust through kind of understanding yourselves and understanding a little bit better about other people in that team environment. And I think that's where you're kind of talking about in your teams, where we can have some sessions. The coaching is more about that individual understanding how to understand themselves a little better so they can flex, right? So if I'm getting a lot of feedback that I don't seem to be very high emotional intelligence, people aren't getting me, I'm a little bit too brash, I'm a little bit too over the top when I talk to people, I'm putting people off. That could be reflective in my DiSC, and I go, oh, okay, that's because I'm this way, and I need to flex a little bit. I need to be a little bit different in my approach when I'm talking to certain people because I might be putting them off because of my approach.
100%. And it's exactly what it is. It's adjusting approach, flexing. It's not about changing who you are.
Right.
This is never about changing who you are. It's about how do I flex my style? And another thing that I didn't think about, and Matt, you and I didn't talk about it, but you can use this in a bit of a hybrid approach for group coaching. So if you've got a group that you don't necessarily want to do training for, but you want to have the space for them to learn about each other and maybe do a few sessions to where the group comes together and starts to talk about collectively what communication looked like. So it could also be used in the group setting.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen this be used for like a new team, right? We have a new team where there's 6 people on the team and 4 people were hired in the last 6 months. They haven't worked together much. They need to understand how to work, and maybe they're not as productive as they could be because of their newness of working together.
100%. This to Q&A.
Yeah.
There may be a question. I'm not sure. I can't see it on the screen.
Yep.
Erin, do we have any questions that we can make up answers to?
We have a question. And you did wonderful, Leslie. Thank you so much. I actually have a question, but we're going to get to the chat question first.
Good.
Okay.
So the question from an individual is, how can I use my DiSC profile for personal growth? What communication strategies work best with people of opposite DiSC styles?
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, let's start with the first one. Can you read the first half of it again? It's about
Sure.
themselves.
How can I use my DiSC profile for personal growth?
Okay, excellent. So this is a great personal growth tool, in my opinion, and Matt, feel free to jump in. Understanding your self-awareness. When I work with someone, a new client in coaching, we always start with self-awareness, understanding themselves first, because if we don't understand ourselves, it's going to be really hard to connect and develop relations with others, right? And so understanding ourselves is really important to think about what our preferences are, what we like, what we don't like. And sometimes those things we don't like are skills that we could actually leverage in the right career mindset. So, for example, if you're a high I like me and you really don't like invoicing or doing the time card or whatever those things are, it's like start to think about how do I start to make a shift of how that values me, how I could get value by learning that skill or building it into my schedule, how I can start to reframe mindset. Why don't I like it? What is it about it that I don't like? Then maybe I need to readjust the mindset. So you can start to think differently. And it also, could be help in thinking about what your career could look like in the future, right? How can I leverage my gift, my style in career? If I'm a high I and I really like being on the stage, can I start doing, maybe offering to do training in my company, and broadening my skills that way? There's a lot of different ways to play with that. I don't know if that's an exact answer or if that made sense, but I think there's a lot of ways to think about where you're at, how you use those effectively, but also how you start to build other skills that might be helpful. Okay.
Awesome. And then I
Second
think you
part.
also mentioned in the Catalyst system, so if they took the test
Mhm.
and they have access to that, you said there were little training things
Yes,
as
there's
well.
little modules that are in the program already that have different concepts that you can leverage and learn from those. Because the more knowledge we have about our style and other people's styles, the better the relationships, the stronger the collaboration, and all of those things build a trust. They build innovation. They build a more effective change. And they are magnificent leadership tools, because leadership development and growing in leadership is not about how I do the job more effectively. It's how do I bring people along to do the job more
Mhm.
effectively.
Mhm.
Leadership is about people. DiSC is all about people. Part
Awesome.
two of that question, please, Erin.
What communication strategies work best with people of opposite DiSC styles?
Oh my gosh, are you ready for this one? Having a conversation with them. I'd like to learn about your preferences. How do you like to get communications? Do you prefer text? Do you prefer email? Do you prefer a phone call? Do you prefer a face-to-face? Do you prefer a walk and talk? What works well for you? What am I doing that I can be doing differently or more effectively to connect with you? And then hopefully if you're having a really good conversation with that person, they're going to turn around and say, well, what can I do more effectively to communicate with you? The best way to build communications is to actually talk with the person you want to communicate with and build relationships.
Fantastic. So I have a question.
Okay, bring it.
Um, so when we were talking about could the disc change, profile change? And you mentioned it doesn't change that often or that much, trauma being one and how they answer the questions. So my question centers around how they answer the question. So my mind went to, well, when's a good time to give this test then if we're thinking about, oh, well, something change management. So we just announced we're going through a merger. You don't want to then just initiate a disc assessment then, right? I mean, because that would
Probably not.
typically skew question answers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think thinking about there's never a perfect time, right? There's always something happening in an organization. There is no perfect time, but don't do it. Say we're going to initiate this big change and now get this assessment because now you put a stress on them that they're now thinking about, okay, am I going to be redundant? Are they trying to get rid of me? All the things that our crazy brains make up. Our brains are so gifted at telling stories, making things up, that, be thoughtful around the time. It's better to do it when you are kind of ready for a larger scale or a bigger opportunity, whether it's a new team coming together, a project team, or you're just ready to bring the organization together for higher collaboration. That said, when you're physically taking your test, I tell people go with their first answer. Don't overthink this. Don't try to game the system. Well, I really want to be seen as an I. I really want to be a D so I can get the promotion, whatever. Be yourself. Go with your first response is how I tell people. Shut your email down, close everything away, put the cat in the other room so the cat's not crawling across the keyboard with you, right? Do just a couple of things that can help you be successful. And when I go over a report with an individual or a group, I say if this report is 70 to 80% correct, then we've got a good report. The report doesn't know you. It knows how you answered a series of questions, and there's an algorithm, right? So it doesn't know you personally, but I seldom have anybody say their report is not valid for them. I mean, seldom, like maybe probably 2 in 1,000. It's not a ton that it happens. That said, I've also had people say, oh my gosh, this report is 10,000% me. How does it know me? I said, it just knows how you answered a series of questions. You're seeing yourself. And so it's really cool about the debrief and being able to go through the report and get familiar with it, ask questions, and think about who you are. And I also tell people if they see something in a report that they feel like is not them, make a note and ask somebody they trust, somebody who'll be honest with them and say, do you think this is me or not? Right? And they may say, oh, that's totally you. You're just not seeing it. All right. Then it might be, yeah, you're right. It's not you. So there's some ways to play with that.
Yeah. Leslie, I also mentioned, because of the way that you are providing the answers, if you don't go in with an open mind of just answering, like you said, your first initial, you can skew it. And that's why it's not perfect in all situations for all business uses, right? So if you went in saying, I'm going to answer this the way a D would answer this because I know enough to understand what that style is, and I'm going to answer these questions, you can skew it that way, which is why we don't use this in all situations, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
You can skew it. It's hard to do. Quite often people are just like, they'll hit the 3 all the way down instead of the 4s and the 5s and the 1s and or the seldoms and nevers, right? You can skew it to some degree, and that's where you'll have a few points that are off. You might be like a stressor. It says something's a stressor or a motivator for you in that particular style. And you're like, that's totally not me. That's totally not my thing. So it can be the way you answered some of the questions. That's why it's just really important to go with your first thought. The first thing you see on the screen that feels like it's you, don't overthink it, click the button, move on.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I'm an overthinker.
Yeah, well, Erin, that's where we have to shut that brain down a little bit and really just kind of go back when you're overthinking. It's like go back, okay, what was my first response?
Yeah.
And then go back to it, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I think that grabbed all the questions. So just because we did have something coming anonymously. So a copy of the recording and all of the information about the offer will be sent out later today. And we are at time. So thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you, Matt. You guys did a wonderful job. I learned stuff. I hope everybody else learned stuff. And we really appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending today, and we will see you all next month.
This was
Have a
fun.
great
Thanks
day.
for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.